My name is Elena Graves. I'm 30 years old now, living in Maryland and working as a family law attorney. But this story doesn't start in a courtroom. It starts long before I even knew what justice meant. It began the day Cheryl Andrews walked into our home, just 2 weeks after we buried my mother. That day, my father looked me straight in the eye and said, "If you've got a problem with her staying here, you can leave." Then he did something I'll never forget. He opened the front door and waited. I was 16. I didn't have a suitcase. I wasn't even wearing socks, but I walked out. The rain had just started. I can still smell the wet grass and cheap cologne. I looked back once and saw them, my father and his new woman, standing in the hallway where my mother used to hum and fold laundry. And I wondered, how do you replace a wife so quickly? How do you replace a mother before the flowers on her grave have even wilted? It took me years to return, and when I did, I wasn't alone. And I wasn't coming back for forgiveness or closure. I came back because someone else needed help, and it was the woman who had taken my mother's place. The house I grew up in sat at the end of a red clay road in rural North Carolina. From the outside, it looked calm, white shutters, a creaky porch swing, and an old oak tree shading the front yard like a protective hand. But inside, everything felt ready to shatter. My father, Cheryl Graves, was a big man, not just in body, but in presence. A former army mechanic, discharged early for reasons no one talked about. He moved like he owned every breath in the room. When he was angry, even the furniture seemed to pull away. My mother, Mara, had been a music teacher once. As a child, I watched her hands dance across the piano keys. By the time I was 6, the piano was gone, sold to pay bills. Her hands fell silent after that, except when they reached out for me. The first time he hit me, I was 6. I had spilled milk at dinner, just a small accident. The glass tipped, soaking the tablecloth my mother had ironed that morning. He stared at me like I had cursed in church. "You think this is your house?" he said, and then came the slap. I don't remember the pain, only the noise, the plate crashing to the floor, my mother's chair scraping back, and her voice trembling. "She's just a child, Gerald." He shoved her. She hit the wall behind the fridge. She didn't cry, she only looked at me. That night, she sat beside me with a cold washcloth on my cheek. Her voice was low when she said, "Elena, sometimes the people meant to protect you don't know how." She wasn't excusing him, she was warning me. From that night on, I knew our house wasn't just dangerous by accident, it was dangerous by design, and patterns like that don't fix themselves. When my sister Lacey was born, I was 8. She arrived with tiny fingers, a clear, piercing cry, and a smile that seemed to make my mother breathe again. But something else shifted, too. My father, this man who smashed plates if I coughed too loudly, became soft with Lacey. He called her my little light, held her like she was made of glass. He never yelled, never raised a hand. At first, I was relieved. At least he wouldn't break her the way he had broken me and my mother. But then, I started to disappear. It began in small ways. If Lacey cried and I was nearby, he looked at me first. If something went wrong, I was the one who should have been watching. One night, I knocked over her stuffed giraffe. It barely made a sound. She didn't even notice, but he did. He slapped me so hard I fell into the hallway. "You make your sister cry again, and you'll wish you hadn't," he said. That night, I sat in my room holding that giraffe. I wasn't angry at Lacey, she was just a baby, but I remember thinking, why her? What did she have that I didn't? What did I do to deserve being the one he couldn't love? My mother found me sitting in the dark. She didn't ask what happened, she just held me and whispered, "I love you both, even if it doesn't always feel like it." It didn't feel like it, and the older I got, the more it seemed like I was just the practice child, the one they had before they got it right. By the time I was 14, my mother was fading. Not her body, she still made dinner and packed Lacey's lunches with sweet little notes, but her spirit. She stopped humming, stopped wearing earrings, stopped sitting under the oak tree with me. I'd come home and find her staring into cold tea, as if waiting for it to say something kind. "Mom," I'd say. She would blink, force a smile. "I'm okay, Elena, just tired." But in a house like ours, tired could mean something far worse. The fights between my parents grew sharper. They weren't about money anymore, they were about someone else, a name I didn't recognize at first. "Cheryl. You think I don't know?" my mother shouted one night. "You think I don't hear you whispering on the porch like a lovesick teenager?" My father didn't bother denying it. He rolled his eyes and poured another drink. That was the first time I saw my mother punch a wall. Her knuckles were bruised the next morning, hidden beneath a dish towel. Later that week, I found a folded pamphlet in her drawer, domestic abuse, know the signs. That's when I started writing everything down, the dates he came home drunk, the bruises, the threats, the words he thought no one heard. I didn't know exactly what I was doing. Maybe I thought if I recorded the truth somewhere, it would matter one day, but even then, I could tell, the look in my mother's eyes wasn't fear anymore. It was something deeper, something already halfway gone. It was surrender, but in a house like ours, surrender didn't always mean giving up. Sometimes, it meant disappearing before someone else took that choice from you. It happened on a Tuesday in October, cloudy, the kind of day when the ground feels unsteady beneath your feet. I was late getting home. I'd stayed at the library to finish an essay. When I stepped inside, the house was silent. No TV, no pots banging, no Lacey singing to her dolls, just my father on the couch, staring blankly at the wall, an empty bottle at his feet. He looked at me like I had interrupted something private. "Your mother fell down the stairs," he said, voice flat. "She's at the hospital." That was it. Not "she's hurt," not "we need to go," just a cold, detached headline. What? How? I stepped closer. His jaw tightened. "She fell," he snapped, rising to grab his coat. "That's all, don't start." He pushed past me toward the door. "I need more whiskey." I ran, left my bag behind, just ran the 5 blocks to the emergency room. Lacey sat in the waiting area, legs dangling off a plastic chair, clutching her doll. Her eyes were red and swollen. When she saw me, she burst into sobs. "Mom won't wake up." A nurse led me in. My mother looked like a stranger in that hospital bed, still, pale, her arms bruised in deep purple blooms, but it was the faint line across her neck that froze me, a thin mark, like a thumbprint pressed too hard. The doctor said it was a catastrophic head injury. They said she must have fallen backward, hit the stairs wrong. They did everything they could. She didn't make it. I touched her hand. It was still warm, and for a moment, I thought if I stayed perfectly still, didn't cry, didn't breathe, maybe I could keep her here. Maybe the world would stop, just for us. But it didn't. 4 days later, we buried her. My father wore a wrinkled shirt, reeking of sweat and cheap liquor. He didn't cry, didn't speak to me or Lacey. The neighbors came and whispered. One woman hugged me too long and murmured, "If you ever need anything," but no one said what we all felt. My mother hadn't simply fallen. Someone had pushed her, maybe not with hands, but with years of cruelty, and whatever happened on those stairs, it wasn't an accident. But I had no proof, just a notebook full of bruises no one wanted to read and a little sister who still whispered mom in her sleep. 2 weeks after the funeral, I came home to a new smell, not my mother's soft lilac perfume, but something sharp, synthetic, cheap. Cheryl was in the kitchen, wearing my mother's apron, pouring iced tea like she had always belonged there. My father stood beside her, beer in hand, his stomach resting on the counter like it was just another Tuesday. He didn't look at me when he spoke. "This is Cheryl, she'll be living here now." I stared at him, then at her. She smiled, triumphant, like she had already won. "You can't be serious," I whispered. "Mom's only been gone." "You don't tell me what I can or can't do in my house," he snapped. When I didn't move, he stepped forward. "If you've got a problem with her, get out." He opened the door and waited. No yelling, no tears, not even from Lacey. She sat curled in the living room, knees tucked to her chest, clutching her doll like it might shield her. I stepped outside with nothing but the clothes on my back and my half-zipped school bag. No jacket, no toothbrush, no plan, just the wind and that cheap perfume stuck in my throat. I didn't look back until I reached the sidewalk, and even then, the only thing I saw was the porch light flicking on, like I had never been part of that house at all. That night, I slept under the metal awning of a closed gas station. It rained. I used my backpack as a pillow. Around 3 a.m., I whispered to the dark sky, "I think he killed her." No one answered. I wasn't expecting anyone to. By then, I knew, in that house, some people were replaceable, and some were just obstacles. The next night, I found a park bench near the grocery store where I used to bag apples. My jacket was still hanging on the hook by the door I'd been shoved out of. I didn't sleep. I just watched the sky and waited for morning like it owed me something. By dawn, I was shivering so hard my teeth ached, and my stomach twisted into knots. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went to Tommy Sanders' house, my best friend since 3rd grade. His mom opened the door. Her eyes went wide when she saw me, soaked, silent, 16. She didn't ask questions. She pulled me inside, wrapped me in a towel, handed me dry clothes, and made a plate of eggs I couldn't eat. Later, when I finally told her everything, the bruises, my mother's death, the woman in the kitchen, she listened. She didn't gasp or say, "Are you sure?" She asked, "Do you have any family?" I thought of Aunt Ruth, my mother's sister in Maryland. We hadn't seen her much after she moved away, but at the funeral, she had looked at my father like she saw through him. Mrs. Sanders handed me the phone. Ruth picked up on the second ring. "Elena," she said, her voice broke before I could speak. I told her everything. When I finished, she didn't say, "Honey," or "I don't know what to do." She said, "I'm coming to get you." 3 hours later, she pulled into the driveway in a battered silver Subaru, bumper stickers peeling, tears still drying on her cheeks. She opened the passenger door but didn't rush me. When I climbed in, she took my hand. "We'll figure this out," she said, "and we'll get Lacey, I promise." For the first time in days, I let myself breathe, because someone, finally, had said what I didn't know I needed to hear: "You're not alone." It took me almost a month to go back, not because I didn't want to, but because I needed a plan, and someone who would stand beside me. That someone was Tom, Aunt Ruth's husband, a retired firefighter with gentle eyes and shoulders wide enough to make you feel safe. He didn't need to shout to be heard. When I told him everything, he didn't hesitate. "We'll get her out," he said, "and if he lays a hand on you again, he'll deal with me." We drove down on a gray Saturday, skies heavy like they were holding their breath. My chest felt hollow, as if my heart had forgotten how to stay inside me. We parked a block away. Tom put his hand on my shoulder. "If anything feels wrong, we leave, understood?" I nodded, though every part of me pulled toward that door. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Overgrown yard, sagging shutters, that old oak still stretching its arms across the yard. I knocked. Cheryl opened the door. Her smile dropped. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here for Lacey." She laughed. "She's not going anywhere." Then my father appeared, bottle in hand, looking thinner, grayer, but his eyes still sharp and cruel. "This is my house," he slurred. "You don't get to make demands." Tom stepped forward, calm and steady. "We're not here to argue, we're taking the girl, that's all." I pushed past them, found Lacey in her room, sitting on the bed, clutching that old doll Mom had sewn. Her cheek was red, her eyes too big for her small face. When she saw me, she ran into my arms. "You came back," she whispered. "Of course I did," I said, "and I'm not leaving without you." When we turned to go, Cheryl blocked the hallway. "She's lying," she screeched. "That kid bruised herself. She's just like her crazy mother." Before I could answer, Lacey spoke. You hit me when Dad wasn't looking." That was all we needed. Tom stepped forward, and for the first time, I watched my father step back. We left quietly, no yelling, no dragging, just the echo of our footsteps. As we stepped into the yard, I looked up at the oak tree. It hadn't changed, but I had. We never went back to North Carolina, not for holidays, not for birthdays, not even when the house was listed for sale a year later. Aunt Ruth enrolled Lacey and me in a small public school outside Annapolis. Tom fixed up the attic so we each had a small space of our own. It wasn't fancy, but it was safe, and for the first time in years, I slept without listening for footsteps in the hallway. Lacey began to laugh again. She made friends, joined the art club, and every night before bed, she drew something new: a tree, a star, our mother in her favorite blue dress. I didn't know what I wanted then, I just knew I wanted to matter. One day, I found my old notebook in a moving box, the one where I'd recorded every bruise, every lie, every scream. I read it cover to cover, then I opened a new one. On the first page, I wrote, "This time, I'll speak for the ones who can't." At 18, I started community college. 2 years later, I transferred to university. By 24, I was applying to law school with an essay called "The Case No One Took." I didn't write about my father. I didn't name names. I wrote the truth. I wasn't strong because of what he did. I was strong because someone, even just one person, saw me as worth saving, and I wanted to become that person for someone else. I was 28 when the name landed on my desk. Samantha McCoo, requesting an emergency protection order, alleging repeated abuse by her husband, Thomas Caldwell. I froze. Tom Caldwell, my father. The file was thin but heavy: photos, medical reports, statements, everything my mother never had. I took it to my supervisor. "Sir," I said, voice even, I need to declare a conflict. This man is my biological father. He paused. You want me to reassign it? I thought of Lacey, of Mom, of Samantha's hollow eyes in her photo. No, I said, I'd like to stay on. In the small conference room, Samantha walked in, shoulders tight, hand bandaged. She flinched when the door clicked shut. I stood up. Elena Caldwell, I said, extending my hand, legal intern, you're safe here. She looked at me, her eyes carrying that same question I'd once seen in my mother, will anyone believe me? I used to live with him too, I added softly, not as a weapon, just as a bridge. She blinked fast, then nodded. Okay, she whispered, okay. The case was brutal, he denied everything, claimed she was making it up. But this time, there were records, witnesses, reports. I helped her organize every detail, just like I used to do in my old notebooks. 2 weeks later, the judge granted her protective order. In the hallway, Samantha cried, a quiet, crumpling sound. She turned to me. I don't know how to thank you, she said. You just did, I replied. I never saw him that day, not in court, not outside. I don't know if he realized I was the one who helped her escape, and I didn't need him to. Somewhere, in a dusty box, I still have Mom's apron. It still smells faintly of rosemary and smoke, but I don't wear it. I became something else, not a daughter, not a victim, a witness to what silence costs, and a woman who chose not to stay quiet. If you've ever found your strength only after walking away, you don't have to tell the whole story. Just leave behind one word your mother never heard, enough.